everyone. Brief format. I've got some remarks and some comments about what we are anticipating and the assumption that we're using to make decisions. We've got a number of people here who will be able to answer your questions in various aspects of the city life, and they'll come up and answer your questions if you have any for them. We've got with us, joining us with city council members. We have City Manager Brian Maxwell. We have Fire Chief Mike Wisco, Police Chief Rick Boyle. We've got Joe Huff with the college. We've got Peter Davis, Beach Patrol Chief. We've got the Galveston Island Convention and Visitors Bureau Director Meg Winchester. We've got GISD Assistant Superintendent Diane Polzine. We've got the Galveston Island Humane Society Director Caroline Pate. We've got representatives from UTMB, and we also have the representative from the Port of Galveston. I think Peter Simon is on his way. Let me start off by saying we had a meeting this morning with city leadership and city staff, and there was probably 25 people in the room. Everybody in the room, with the exception of two, have been through a hurricane before. So the good news is we have a lot of experience in dealing with these issues. Galveston's official position is we are prepared. We're not panicking. As you know, we have issued a voluntary evacuation for the west end of the island and low-lying areas within the city. We are suggesting for those who live in the low-lying areas to move out, where they would, those that might need accessibility to either relatives or medical needs, to move on into the city or evacuate. We're anticipating a storm surge of 2 to 4 feet in most of the city. As you move out west from Jamaica Beach west to the San Luis Pass Bridge, we're probably looking at 5 to 8 foot. Just for reference, for those who don't remember, at this stage of the game, when we were looking at Hurricane Ike 9 years ago, we were talking somewhere between 14 and 20 foot. So they're not the same events. We are still expecting, based on current prognostication, 15 to 20 inches of rain in our area from this morning through Wednesday morning. We do not anticipate hurricane force winds to come to the island throughout this entire 4 or 5 day event. We are expecting and anticipating tropical storm gust. We've all been through a number of these. This one's a little different. You know, most of the storms we deal with, they come across land and 8 or 10 hours later they're in Texarkana or somewhere. This one's not going anywhere. Matter of fact, they're not even fully projecting that this thing will completely come into land. It may come, the eye may come in, and the back half of the storm may stay over the water, which feeds the energy that these storms need. So we're looking and anticipating this storm coming into land down in the Matagorda, Corpus area, hovering and bending eastward. Models have it maybe coming back in the Gulf and coming back on shore, but either way, that hovering effect will impact us. We're going to see high tides come up. Our highest tide we anticipate will be in the morning. The bad news is they're not going down for 3 or 4 days. And so we'll get those high tides in the morning. Any of this rain we anticipate is going to stack on top of that. And so that's the concern we have, is that, how long are those tides going to stay up? If we can get some help with the storm jogging further south, or some steering currents pull that thing out of here quicker, those will all be good signs as you look at the weather forecast as they continue to come through. We do anticipate street flooding. The latest models show that we'll probably have some issues in our downtown area. We'll have some isolated issues out in the Herds Lane, the 57th Street area, the Hollywood Heights neighborhoods. At this point, we're hoping that it's just street flooding and doesn't stack up and create flooding in our residential housing or commercial businesses. I'm not sure I even need to say this, but we expect strong rip currents, so it's not advisable to go swimming or surfing this afternoon or tomorrow. We do not anticipate the causeway closing. Of course, that would be a TxDOT call, TxDOT highway. The ferry is currently running. We do anticipate ferry closing at some point, but they'll run it as long as it's safe for them to operate the ferry vehicles. Centerpoint was here this morning, Keith Gray. He's reported that as of this morning at 11 o'clock, they had about 80 customers who had lost service in their whole geographic region, which includes most of Galveston County and certainly parts of southern and eastern Harris County. They are poised and ready to go in Jack Brooks Park, where they stage. They are ready to respond and react. They've got extra crews ready to bring lines back if we lose power to UTMB and some of the medical facilities here on the East End. Jamaica Beach has recently issued a voluntary evacuation for their residents to match up with what the city has done. And following the county conference call earlier this morning, no city in Galveston County has issued any type of mandatory evacuation. Everything is voluntary at this stage. You know, people ask, well, what do I do? Where do I go? What's the deal? We're going to have wind, but the wind is not going to be the dominant feature here. It's the water. And at some point this afternoon, you probably just ought to stay where you're at. Shelter in place, shelter in your house. Hopefully you have your supplies, your medications, things that you're going to need to deal with an inconvenience for 3 or 4 days. For those who, under, again, our normal protocol, if we were having evacuations either mandatory or voluntary, most of our residents, their destinations of choice would be to go out to, for some reason, College Station, Austin, San Antonio, and go out west. But quite honestly, folks, our destination places may have more impact than we do. They're going to have the same type of rains, a lot of rivers. Their water doesn't have as many places to go as ours does. So evacuation off the island is a difficult task. Dallas is going to even get substantial downpours and impacts from this event. So they can call the numbers we have, call our non-emergency dispatch. We've got people answering those calls 24/7. We will send people out to help if weather permits. We don't want to put our first responders in harm's way, but we'll be there to answer calls, walk you through any problems, get you the assets and the attention that you might need. We have not activated any shelter at this point. We are contemplating activating shelter later today, but that's not been final yet. We're waiting to see what the weather does this afternoon, but we do have plans to activate a shelter if needed later today. Reality is we learn from every one of these things. Most of us in the room have been through multiple hurricanes. I guess, Roger, we're old enough to at least say we went back to Carla. So that's in the early 60s. And undoubtedly every storm is unique. This one was unique in that it's not going anyplace. It's staying with us for 3 or 4 days. We will make mistakes. We'll take notes and learn from them. We won't make the same mistakes next time. But I want everyone to know that the city and the public jurisdictions within the city of Galveston are prepared. There has been no panic. It has been business. I wish everyone could see the internal mechanics of what people are doing. They are prepared. They know their plan. We'll be putting barricades up downtown very shortly. We know it's going to flood. We don't want to have vehicles crossing through there and creating wakes and creating more flooding problems unnecessarily. We've got a lot of road construction going on in this city at the present levels. Our contractors have been out there to secure those construction sites. We've got our public works people ready to. We've got those heavy metal covers over some of our work in the streets. They're being secured. We've got barricades already set up on 3005. Everybody knows when we get the high tides, 3005 is going to have a problem out there. in the 7-8 mile road area. We're going to barricade those off and reroute people over to Stewart Road. It'll be open longer than 3005 for people on the west end who need to circulate to and from that part of town. So we're trying to be as proactive as we can without creating panic. Our people will be working 24/7, and we have enough people. We think this is, again, going to test. Everybody's adrenaline's flowing right now. Everybody's ready to tackle the problem. Come along Monday, human nature, we'll hit the wall. So we're going to need everyone to kind of stay with us, and we've got hotel accommodations and things and food to rest our people to make sure they stay fed and able to rest and shower, so they'll be ready and fresh as they can be as we move into the unknown stretch of this, which is that Tuesday, Wednesday time frame. Be happy to answer questions. We have some other key takeaways, but I think we've got some of the players here who can answer those questions about when GISD might be closing, or what the park board's doing, or what UTMB might be doing, or what Galveston College schedule are. So are there any questions that you might have?
Mayor?
Yes.
Back in Hurricane Ike, San Luis ended up being kind of a command center for everybody.
Yes.
Is there any need, you think, to do that this time, or where are you all going to operate from here?
A combination. No, it's not the traditional. If we were down there in the Corpus Matagorda area, we would have activated the San Luis as our emergency operations center, and everything would have been hubbed out of the San Luis Hotel. We have that contract in place. We've already exercised some rooms and some meals off that contract as we speak. We will be operating, we think, with what we think on road closures and stuff, we can operate it both out of here and our emergency operations center, which is out at the Galveston Police Department, out there in the complex with the Galveston County Sheriff and the Justice Center on 54th Street. So we'll have some calls will be taken here and dealing with issues here. Some will be taking place out at 54th Street at the Emergency Operations Center.
Speaking of Ike, what changes?
You're next.
Oh,
Yes.
sorry. What changes have happened on the island since that time? And you talked about learning from storms. What have you guys learned because of Ike?
Well, we hope enough. The good news is we had an injection of a lot of federal money, so a lot of our infrastructure being water systems, delivery systems, wastewater, pump stations, sewer systems. Most of those have already been upgraded. They're not complete. There's still some of them under construction, but most of them have been upgraded to handle Category 5 conditions. So we're not in Category 5. Not all of them have hardened yet. There's still projects to be done. Part of the reason for the evacuation call, a voluntary evacuation call on the west end, was not so much that we were fearful of wind or their houses flooding. Their garages may get some water. But if we have a utility problem, it's most likely going to happen on the west end. And if you've got storm conditions, area flooded, it would be difficult for us to locate, much less repair, broken utility lines out there. We'd most likely have to shut the whole system off out there. And that may take 3 or 4 days before we get to it. That's why we call for the voluntary evacuation. Dozens of others lessons learned just from internal communication. Resting our people. Last time we, not just the city but the county, all of us involved, we kind of burned our folks out after Ike. And it wasn't the same because Ike was here on a Friday night, and Saturday morning, we drove down here and saw all the boats and the cars and the refrigerators and all the debris, but the weather was gone. This is not the same. So, we've learned little tricks of the trade and feel very confident, and I've already got 5 things on the list for next time, so we're keeping that list going. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mayor, just to follow up on the voluntary evacuation, you mentioned that the projected storm surge is about 2 to 4 feet and a rainfall up to 20 inches. Is there a certain storm surge height or rainfall that will prompt the mandatory evacuation?
Yeah, if we thought we were going to get that 8-foot storm surge across the island as opposed to just the far west and the low-lying areas, that 8 foot is kind of a not an official trigger point, but that's where we really start looking at the evacuation on a mandatory basis for a legitimate call. And unfortunately, if we were down on the coast down there, we would have to be calling for a mandatory evacuation probably 2 days ago. And that's always a dicey call when you're a tourist community. You got a lot of visitors in. You don't want to panic people who are not used to dealing with these issues. So evacuations, the good news is we won't have the reentry problems we had last time. People will already be here, and that's a good thing.
And again,
Yes, ma'am.
I
Deborah,
think I jumped in on somebody.
you deserve it.
Speaking of reentries, was that, do you think, looking back at Ike, was that a necessity or just unfortunate?
You know, that question comes up along with, the one thing we learned from Mike, all the people who evacuated, they're staying. All the people who stayed, they're leaving. I was here during Ike in another capacity and worked very closely with Mayor Thomas. She made the right call. The right call was because we didn't have city services. I mean, you could not have serviced all people coming back with no water and no sewer capacity for that extended period of time. So, but some of the lessons learned from that was, and some of our protocols have changed and we think improved, even not yet tested, is the reentry phase of getting people back here quicker. Because one, we need to get them back here quicker. They deserve to get back here quicker. Some FEMA rules have changed relative to debris removal, which are going to necessitate us moving faster than we did during Ike. And so that's an area that we really have some improvement, yet this won't get tested this time.
If 3005 gets cut off, are there resources, fire, EMS, and police stationed out on the west end?
Yes, right now we have both police and fire out there, and both the chiefs can respond to exactly, but at this point, is it Fire Station 7, Chief?
Yes,
it's 7 and 8. 7 and 8, they're open. At some point in time, if circumstances and weather dictate, we may pull them in, but right now there are services available out there partly for this reason. Other questions?
Yes. I know you mentioned that you're not worried about hurricane force winds, but one of those models does have the possibility of it coming back out and re-strengthening and then making another landfall about here. I know, right?
Ain't it
so
great?
How is there any concern that by having voluntary now, you won't be able to have mandatory later?
There's no question. If the storm does what you suggest, hover down, come back in the Gulf and re-enter where we're kind of in the bullseye, there won't be time or capacity for any evacuation at that point. We have buttoned down, drilled down with the National Weather Service on multiple conference calls as well as individual calls with the Weather Service in just the city about that very issue. The best prognostication at the Weather Service, if it does bubble back out in the Gulf, it probably will not re-enter as a hurricane, but a significant tropical storm. But evacuation won't be an option much after about 5:30, 6 o'clock this afternoon.
And at this point, what is your worst case, given the scenarios you've heard? A realistic one.
Well, the good news is the storm has picked up a little forward speed. It's at the 10 miles an hour, which is good. As long as it's slow, it still has the potential to continue to bobble, much like Ike did. If you remember, Ike was headed to Matagorda. And fortunately, it kept bubbling to the right. And for Galveston's sake, we're lucky the worst hit Gilcrest. If the worst had hit San Luis Pass, we'd have had that 20-foot of surge right here on the island versus the 14 we saw. To me, the worst thing would be for it to continue to bubble a little further our direction. And not that it's going to materially impact the winds, but will impact the tides. Those 2 to 4 foot tides all become 3 to 6 foot tides. And then you start stacking rain. And then now we don't have just isolated downtown and low-lying west end. We have more problems in other parts of town.
So surge is still the enemy, even like with the ice.
Surge is, the old adage, hunker from wind, run from water, is still the gospel. And we're to the point where we're going to, in the words of my good friend Ed Emmett in Harris County, we're going to hunker down. Other questions?
You mentioned that rain not going to be the biggest issue.
Sorry about that.
It's our first casualty.
Yeah. It's got to get better.
Add that to the list.
Let's take it down. We'll just take these little clips over here. Question?
Yeah, and you'd mentioned rain, not so much the concern here because of what's happening with the storm and being inland. But any potential issues with the runoff from that, with whether it's the debris or the quality of that water as it heads back towards the Gulf and ultimately towards Galveston? Just given the excessive amount that inland is expecting.
Yeah, that's an issue. Drainage 101 in Galveston, we gravity drain. We have no mechanical drains on the island. We drain from the seawall to the bay. And so the higher part of the island is up close to the seawall. Didn't flood during Ike. It's going to drain back into downtown, back into our port industrial, back into the port of Galveston. Normally, if we can get some tides to go down, the street water will drain perfect. The problem here is we're not going to see the tides go down for 3 or 4 days. So the seawater is already backing up into our drainage system. So when the rain tries to get out, no place to go. As long as we're at current levels, we're going to have enough pressure because the streets are higher than those 2 to 4 foot tides. We're going to push water out even though the tides are high. When we get to hopefully Tuesday night, Wednesday, when this thing moves out far enough to get those tides to pull back out and we really see some drainage, we've got 2 issues. One, we've got our own island to drain, but the rivers and all the areas north of us are going to be coming into Galveston Bay, which has some potential issues. The real answer is we have no solutions for those. We'll react to those. We don't know what they are, so we're not going to be able to be proactive with that problem, and we'll react to it and deal with it.
Gotcha.
How susceptible is Galveston to the tornado threat at this point?
We're on the side that has more tornado potential, being on the, I hate to use the terms right and left, north and south, but we're on the right side of where the hurricane's going in down Matagorda Bay and Corpus. So the right-hand side would be more susceptible to tornadoes. We will certainly be in tornado watches and warnings from now till probably Wednesday or Thursday. Again, a real issue, but it's as I've always said, there are 3 phases to one of these events. We're in the first phase, pre-landfall. We have a lot of control over that. How prepared are we? What are we doing to protect public assets? What are we doing to protect citizens? Warnings, all those things. The second phase of the event we have no control over. The tornadoes, where it comes, how high is the water. All those things that come during an event we have no control over. The third phase of the event is recovery. And folks, there is a distinct difference between the preparation phase of an event and a recovery phase of an event. Lesson learned. Last year, 9 years ago, it seemed like last year, when I came through, we were using our same first responders and our same infrastructure that we used on the front end on the back end of recovery. They literally ran out of gas. We wore them out. And so we've got plans and we've got pre-positioned contracts with outside vendors to complement our own staff to help us in the recovery. We don't think the recovery is going to be nearly as bad as Ike. Don't even want to leave anybody with that impression. But the third phase of an event, again, we get back in control and we can dictate what happens and how we manage and how we respond to it. So we feel confident that the recovery phase from both cleaning up and citizen reaction to the city, as well as the recovery phase internally, being prepared to deal with the mountain of paperwork that comes with FEMA declarations and the grant processes, we are better prepared by leaps and bounds than what we were 9 years ago.
Does anyone have any questions
Yeah.
for anybody that took the time to come today? We want to thank these guys.
Well, we got Diane Polzine to come up here and tell us what GISD is doing on their schedule, and Joe, maybe you'll follow her with what Galveston College is doing with y'all's plans.
Thank you, Mayor Yarbrough. Today, our staff reported to work. They were released at 11 this morning. The good news for GISD is our students have not reported to school yet. So we have communicated, and we have all kinds of ways to communicate. And this is exactly what we said today in all kinds of forms and fashion. And I will tell you what those are. After, of course, reviewing all of the weather updates that we have gotten, Galveston ISD announced today our decision to cancel classes for students Monday, August 28th, 2017, Tuesday, August 29th, and Wednesday, August 30th. Campus personnel will report back on Wednesday, August 30th at 12 noon so that we are able to ready our facilities for our students to return on the first day of school, which will be Thursday, August 31st at the regular posted school times. Changing weather events, as Mayor Yarbrough talked about, and we all know that's a distinct possibility, could come. So we plan to communicate with our staff, and we have various ways of doing that. We have a wonderful, newly updated website, and that address is www.gisd.org. We will also post and communicate via all of the social media options that we have. So we will be posting to our Facebook page, our Twitter account, our Instagram account. We also have access to our local cable, Channel 17, so we will be posting updates on that platform, as well as the main district number, which is area code 409-766-5100. And these updates will be posted daily on or before 2 p.m. each day. So that's how we will communicate with our staff and with our parents and with our students. Also, staff communication will be managed at the campus level by our campus principals. So as we are continuing to monitor all of the updates, like the rest of the city, we will be communicating with our parents. And of course, to hear Mayor Yarbrough today give this latest update, we have been in contact with the mayor, of course, and listening to all of the updates and the unknowns that could happen. We feel very secure in our decision that we made because, of course, we are dealing with the most youngest population, and it's always safety first with kids. We've listened to stories recently of some of our neighbors up the road that did not at one point take such aggressive action as we have done in Galveston ISD, and we would never, ever want to have a building full of children and not be able to get those children back home to their families. So that's our GISD update. Thank you. Does anybody have a question? Okay, thank you very much.
I'm Joe Huff. I'm Director of Public Affairs for Galveston College. And Galveston College's emergency management team met several times during the last few days, and yesterday at 2 o'clock, the president and that team decided that Galveston College would be closed today, tomorrow. Both of those were late registration days for our 2017 fall semester. And we also decided, after a conference call this morning at 9 a.m., that we would be closed on Monday, which was scheduled to be the first day of classes for Galveston College. So we have communicated that to 4,600 people this morning by our ConnectEd phone system. We put it on our website. We've done social media. So we're already getting responses that students who had enrolled are glad they don't have to go to school on Monday. We will have a conference call of that same emergency management team on Sunday evening and determine what we will do after Monday. Well, we were actually on a roll to, after having completed our 50th anniversary year last week, we were on a roll to have a record-breaking fall 2017 enrollment, and we will continue late registration all next week when we reopen. Any questions?
Do you think Joe's just dressed casually for the hurricane? This is island time. This is his normal attire for the island. Do you have any questions for any of the other guys?
Yeah, could I ask a question?
Absolutely.
How are you guys preparing for Labor Day weekend?
Come on back.
Yeah, I don't know if that's probably a little preemptive.
No, at this point, we're monitoring everything. We're working very closely with all of our partners on the island. Hotels are actually business as usual right now. They're working closely to have accommodations for both visitors and residents on the island. So they are just moving forward through the weekend. We're looking forward to monitoring with all of our attraction partners and all of that to see as we come out of this. We're going to be doing continual updates throughout the weekend through the storm, and then of course following after we have information on everything. But with all indications and the way we're looking forward to a wonderful Labor Day weekend. We've got a lot going on the island, the beer festival, all of the attractions are planning on reopening. So we're looking forward to getting through this and having a wonderful end of the summer weekend.
How big is the Labor Day weekend for tourism in Galveston?
It's actually it's a large weekend for us. It's the end of the summer. We get a lot of people come in. We've got a lot of special events going on. So the island does swell, and it's usually just a wonderful time for everybody to end out their summer season.
But as far as like importance of weekends go, this isn't like the weekend, right?
No, absolutely not. It's a big weekend for us. Most weekends during the summer are. It's a brew festival. It's very important. There is a brew festival at Moody Gardens every year on Labor Day, and that's always a big, very well attended event.
We'll be ready for it this year.
We will. Yeah, absolutely. Brian, yes.
If I could ask,
Yes,
what's the
ma'am.
status of the cruise ships coming in? Is it?
I think that would be you. Thank you.
This is Roger Kroger, works for the former Mayor of Galveston. Raj?
Mayor, I'm glad it's you. We have about, 20,000 people on 4 cruise ships that are trying to enter the port. 3 Carnival ships and 1 Royal Caribbean. So we're going to try to wait for the first opportunity, probably around Tuesday, to get them in. If we can get the Galveston, Texas City pilots' cooperation and allow their personnel to go out and bring the ships in, then we'll try to get them in as soon as we can.
Are they out there even as we speak?
They're out there
In the
waiting.
channel?
No, they're not in the channel. They're offshore.
Offshore. So how long have they been waiting? Should they have been in by now?
We should have had a couple in by now, yes.
So they're gonna ride out the storm?
Yeah, what they were discussing at one particular time was they were going to basically follow the storm and maybe come behind it. If it was going to go in the Corpus Christi area or move further east, then the ships would come around this way, and as it was going east, they'll come behind it and bring the folks in that way.
You being the maritime side of things, how bumpy might that get out there?
Well, I'm not a big cruiser, and this is exactly why. I was in a 19-foot boat one time and got caught in a cold front, and I told the good Lord that if He ever got me out of that, I won't go back.
Should there be in a medical emergency, is there any way to get to someone on one of those?
Is there any way to get one on? Yeah.
Get to somebody there to get them off.
Oh, to get somebody there to get them off? Yeah, they have the ability to do that. And one of the things that they talked about this morning was if there was any light to bring one of these cruise ships in, they were talking about maybe flying them out by helicopter to the cruise ship to get them on that way so that the ship can be brought in.
Can you mention again how many ships are out there?
There'll be 4 ships coming in by Saturday and Sunday. So they're on their way in, and they're just having a delay until they get the okay to come in. And there'll be about 20,000 folks coming in.
Come back in like on Wednesday, around Wednesday, you said?
Yeah. And what happened at noon today is that the captain of the port set the Zulu procedure into effect, and that means that no ship can come into the port.
That was at noon today, you said?
That started at noon today, yes.
Is that kind of that's a rarely used procedure, I would take it?
Well, it takes place when gale force winds are in effect, and that'll be in a few hours probably.
Looking at the lights lined up this morning, are there more anchored out there right now than there would normally be waiting to come into the channel?
I didn't come down to Seawall this morning, but probably not cruise ships. Those are probably ships, tankers going into Texas City and to Port of Houston.
So how big is the backlog out there, do you think?
I don't really know. Right now, we're worried about getting our cruise ships back. We've got thousands of cars here, and if we get 25 inches of rain, we're kind of worried about that, about flooding on Harborside Drive.
I've talked to a few people today who said that they came to town to get onto their cruise to leave with Carnival, and they said that according to Carnival, they were still supposed to be leaving tomorrow mid-afternoon, depending on what comes down from the port. Have you all finally made the decision to follow
Yes,
that?
we talked to the cruise ship companies about an hour ago, and we told them what the situation was, and we're just going to kind of wait and see what happens. First bright spot we have, or little light we have, we'll try to get the Galveston, Texas City pilots on one of them and to get them in that way.
Has this happened before, as far as cruise ships being stranded, whether it's weather related or not?
Oh, I'm sure it has happened before, yeah, especially during night.
But not, and you're not while you've been a part of it. You can't
No.
speak to. Okay.
No, this is the first time that I've been in
Okay.
over there.
Does anyone have any questions for UTMB or Beach Patrol while they're here?
Would Peter like to say anything to the surfers that are out there right now?
Yes, that's what I was getting at.
They're going to do it anyway, but they should hear from you just the same.
Thank you for that. We have our lifeguards out right now, and we're going to work them until it's not safe for them to be out there anymore. At that point, we'll move to mobile patrols. We do have our standard deal for storms that we always put out there. If you're an inexperienced surfer, don't come down to surf the storm. Only experienced people should be out there. At this point, there may be a point where we pull everybody out, but we're not there at this time. We also want to warn everybody not to go in the water, obviously, but also to not walk out on those rock groins. Because once the waves start breaking over the top of them, it becomes very dangerous for us, and we have to go bring them back in or rescue them. So we're going to, part of what the guards will be doing is keeping people from walking out on those groins at this point. And if you do want to go look at the big waves, we just ask that you do it from the top of the seawall.
Have there been any rescues so far?
Nothing so far. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Just one last question for the mayor, please, if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
I understand there's a lot of Spanish community that doesn't speak English. Are you guys are prepared for that?
Yes, we have staff available who are bilingual. And tengo hambre. Necesito más dinero. Yes, we do have. We do. You're hitting my limits. Let me piggyback what Mayor Kuroga was saying, back to Deborah's question. The cruise ships have been aware, just like we have, that there are weather concerns in this area. So they're not right in the middle of where this turbulent stuff is. They're doing the best they can to stay out of that for their customers. And the port does a great job of that. That is a very significant part of our port's business. So they have great relationships. Communication has been good. And as Roger said, as soon as we can work with the Texas City Lamar pilots to get those ships in here and get those customers back safely, we will. But just one of those things that happens when you live on the Gulf Coast. I guess to wrap it up, is there any more questions before I wrap it up? We need to get this guy a little better hat. You want to trade?
I'd rather not.
You know, like I tell him, wherever you go, the eyes of Texas are upon you. You do know that. I wish we had that rivalry back. The bottom line is, these are some of the consequences and things you deal with when you're living on the Gulf Coast. And as I said in the opening statement, the city and our people, I don't think, are panicking. I haven't seen panic when I've been out. It's preparation and moving through our normal protocols. We will have additional press conferences when we have information that warrants. We don't want to take your time for the same song and dance. So we'll, with Jerry's help, we will notify anybody as circumstances and assumptions have changed. We will give you that notice, and we'll have press conferences, and we're available throughout the event to answer your questions and help assist you in your efforts to get the news out to your viewers and listeners. So thank y'all very much for being here.
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask.
Yes, sir.
If someone from UTV could comment on what their plans are, will the ER be open and all that's all throughout all this?
Yeah. Yes, hello, my name is Kurt Koopman with UTMB. Yes, the plan at this point is that the hospitals and the emergency rooms would remain open. We actually went into emergency status officially this morning, but we've been meeting a couple of days prior to that. Our team had and making plans and there are changes to all of our enterprises, you might say, right now. I mean, clinical operations today will officially end, the outpatient clinical operations will end at 3. But like I said, the hospitals will stay open. You know, just like some of the others here, we have students that were all coming back this week. And so our classes were canceled today, and they're also canceled for Monday. But of course, with the uncertainties of the storm that people have already noted, we anticipate there could be some more changes to that. So, you know, one of the things we stress at UTMB also is we are not the same campus we were when Ike hit. There's been over $1 billion of improvements done to our campus to make sure that we would fare better than we did when we had the last threat like this. So anyway, we feel like we're in good shape today, and we're continually going to be meeting, though. We will make updates usually after a 4 o'clock meeting that we have every day. We have 2 a day, but usually those updates are posted also to our Facebook, social media, Twitter, those things also every day. So that's what's going on. Thank you.